We see the Rabbi Levi answers to the Rebbe. He says, yeah, you're telling me you moved, new address, this is the name of the street, it was in Paris, and the name of the house, of the apartment.
Is it the Rebbe's house?
The Rebbe wrote to his father that he moved and gave him the new address. So Rabbi Levi writes back, what is the meaning of the name of the street? What is the number of the apartment, of the house, and what is the number of the apartment? And he explains the Kabbalah like this. He got a pair of shoes for Pesach. So he says, shoes, I received them, they're good. But what is shoes? Shoes is connected with Pesach. Shoes is connected with the Geulah, with Mashiach. Shoes is Pesach, is Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu in Chumash, you find Mischut Vashrech now. You ever knew that Avraham Avinu remembers a shoe? You never thought about it, but it's there. Rabbi Levi, when something came up, the entire Torah stood in front of him. This is, you could see it, the way he talks, the way he writes. I mean, people who heard them, I heard from people, there was also... My grandfather told me a story, my mother's father, it was in Nevel, in White Russia. They were learning in yeshiva, and they learned at that time Hilchas Melicha. They learned for Rabbanos to receive smicha. My mother's father, Yehuda Kulasha, he was the rabbi in Moscow underground. Before the Friedrich Rebbe in 29 sent him to Georgia, and then in 37 he ran from the KGB and he ended up in Moscow. So he remembers that they were sitting in yeshiva, and all of a sudden Rabbi Levi came in. Rabbi Levi, everybody know. Rabbi Levi came in, no, not in Moscow, in Nevel. That was in...
Where is it?
When my grandfather came to Moscow in 37, 2 years later, Rabbi Levi was arrested. At that time, Rabbi Levi was already the Rav in Katerinslau. This was in Nevel, and this was the years, it was before my grandfather got married. He got married in 29, so this was 27, 28, something in that years. Rabbi Levi came in, and Rabbi Levi walked straight to the Rosh Yeshiva of Yehuda Eber, and he had something to speak to him. And we realized, he says, that the Rebbe, the older son of Rabbi Levi, stood by the door. They came in together. Rabbi Levi went to speak to the Rosh Yeshiva, and the Rebbe stood at the door. And my grandfather says, his table was not far from the door. And they were learning. The Rebbe was standing at the door, and the Rebbe came over to their table. And what are you learning? They learn Hilchas Melicha, the laws of Melicha. Kto je to, Reuven? Sami? Kto je? I Rabbi Wolf? Rabbi Wolf has his child. He can't. His wife went to Israel, so he's stuck.
That's good. That's why Niska is everywhere now?
That's when Niska is in shul, because he has no babysitter at home. The mom is in Israel. Her father had an operation in Israel, so she went. Who is there? Reuven?
Yeah. No problem, Rebbetzin. Popowski.
Wiecie dobry. Okay, so what did I start saying? Yeah. So the Rebbe came over to the table. They, at that time, this is my first time my grandfather saw, but at the table somebody says, this is the older son of Rabbi Levi. And the Rebbe then was 28, the Rebbe was 26 years old. Come over there, what are you learning? You're learning Ayin Beis. It was in Hilchas Melicha. So the Rebbe asked him, why is Hilchas Melicha in Siman Ayin Beis? What's the connection between the laws of Melicha with the number 72? They looked, they never heard such a way of learning. What do you mean? It's Shulchan Aruch. You have to make an order, so you make numbers. So Melicha comes out in Ayin Beis. Yeah, what kind of question is this? Anyway, so they start talking, and then Rabbi Levi finished and was going back, was leaving. The Rebbe says, I'm going with my father. He left. They didn't manage to hear the Rebbe's explanation on it, just the question. But before the Rebbe started answering, they didn't understand the question. So the Rebbe had to repeat it a few times that it's not coincidental. Everything in Torah is exact. Hilchas Melicha is here, so there has to be a connection. It's interesting that the Rebbe asked this question because probably he was with his father, and the honor of his father, that was the father's way of learning. So he, at that time, the Rebbe had no other questions, but the Rebbe went to his father's line.
Right. The Kabbalah was very much in numbers, but it was also in how every part of Torah is connected one to another. Talmud and Halacha.
Here you can see the letter. He brings a Zehar once. Who brings? He brings Chumash, Gemaras, Midrashim, a Zehar too. But when you bring the Chumash and this, it's like another wave of thinking. It's just above, throws you away. A shoes on Pesach. Shoes is leadership, and then it brings and Adam will fall, and falling of the Adam will also be with shoes. It's interesting that not connection, but Rebbe Rashab, 1920, the communists came in 1917. Rebbe Rashab says, I can't handle them. Rebbe Rashab says, I don't see an end to them, but there will be an end. So Chassidim explained, don't see an end to them, it's over 50 years. It's like eternity, 50 years, over 50 years. But he says, but there will be an end. And then in 1920, before he passed away, whatever, that winter, he said something that very strange. He says that Russia will fall thanks to a Jew with torn shoes. Torn shoes. Again, shoes. Somehow shoes. Yeah.
What does it mean? Anybody explain?
Well, it's the Rebbe. The Rebbes didn't change shoes for years. The Rebbe was wearing the same pair of shoes. The Rebbe's shoes, if anybody saw it, we were there, we were close. The back of the Rebbe's shoes was this.
Why?
Somebody once came to the Rebbetzin and says, the Rebbe's shoes are torn, let's get new shoes. So she says, come in. Opened up, she says, here is all the shoes I bought. I put them like this and like this and like this, and he still wears the other shoes.
All the shoes must be.
He didn't change the shoes. Very rarely, years with the same pair of shoes. When the Rebbe went to the Ohel, so the Rebbe put sneakers. So Groner had these few hours to take the shoes for repairs or to clean them and this and that. But the Rebbe didn't agree to have another shoes. Simply, they say the Rebbe says it's uncomfortable. It takes them a long time till. But then Chassidim connected it. The Chassidim connected it. The Rebbe Rashab says there will be a Jew with torn shoes. The Rabbi Levi in every situation, in the letters to the Rebbe, we see it. In Russia, people who were at these gatherings, when he was speaking, actually in Yekaterinslav, when he was speaking, majority were simple Jews. Somebody told Rabbi Levi, you're talking such a deep stuff. Who understands you here? He says there is one. The Rebbe was 10 years old, 11 years old. Rebbetzin Chana actually tells the story that a whole year the Rebbe was busy with Cheder. He didn't do anything else. He was sitting with books from morning till late, a whole day. At night, when Rabbi Levi was free from community affairs, he used to come home, so that's when he sat with the Rebbe learning. And so at night, the Rebbe learned with his father, and then a whole day he learned on his own. What am I bringing this in? Yeah. There's a story actually. There was Lazer Nanas. Lazer Nanas was a Jew. That was my grandmother's cousin. He was arrested and he sat in the Gulag, in the Russian system, for over 20 years. He wrote a book called Subota. It's available today and you could get it in Russian, in English, whatever. He never broke Shabbat, and never ate Chometz on Pesach, and never ate treif, whatever. It's 20 years. It's like something hard to imagine. Who's here? Oh, everybody late, please. I think we'll maybe have a meeting for Maghrib.
That would be nice.
Huh?
That would be nice.
Yeah. Great. You'll have probably two guys here. He's coming. Oh, so that's 9. Okay, so we'll see. We'll find another one. Yeah. So Lazer Nanas was once sent by the previous Rebbe to Yekaterinoslav to collect money for Timchat Mimim. Lubavitcher Rebbe, tough years, 22, 23. I was hungry. It was very hard. The boys, the bochrim in the shiva. My grandfather was then in shiva. Says we used to learn in Rostov, and we were hungry. There was no food, bread. I'm not talking. It was special. Anyway, so he says when he came, so Rabbi Levi told them one day he was going around in the city collecting money. One day after davening, Rabbi Levi says, "Today I'm going to come with you to help you to raise money." Okay, so he goes with him. They had the davened. They ate some breakfast, and Rabbi Levi walks with him. And Rabbi Levi walks into a bank and asks the teller if they could get a little table with a chair. Okay, so gets a table on a chair. Rabbi Levi puts it down not far from the entrance and tells to, what is his name? You sit down at this table. And Rabbi Levi is walking around in the bank. Everybody comes in. I'm talking Jews who had money. Rabbi Levi says, here is an emissary from the Rebbe to collect money for Timchat Mimim. Please donate. And he says, in a few hours, he says, I didn't make it in 2 weeks. In a few hours, so I collected, unbelievable. Rabbi Levi was telling, that's what says, come, we'll go and collect money. He put him, I'm saying the approach, a table with a chair, and then in the bank, in the middle of the bank, and then says this guy, okay, you go donate. That's the...
What year was that? Before revolution?
No, it was after the revolution already. No, it was after the revolution. It was the previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe was already after 1920. It was the previous Rebbe, not the Rebbe Rashab.
So they didn't...
Whatever, it was communism, but still, people, money to whatever, a cause, whatever. It was still, it took time till they, the whole thing, they destroyed everything.
Like in Egypt.
Like in Egypt. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Rebbetzin Chana tells the story that she says when we were discussing with your husband difficult things in the community, how to handle, what to do, because there was needs of community, people in community are different, and then there was the KGB, and then there was, things were very, very hard. So Rabbi Levi used to say to his wife, to the Rebbetzin Chana, he says, we have to ask our sons that he has a gleiche Kopf. He has a straight head. He thinks very, very special, straight. The son. And she says, and my son was I guess it was before the communist My son was only 10 years old. Rebbetzin Chana writes in there, she shared it. Rabbi Levi, this genius, this like tremendous mind, used to say, they discuss something.
His brother, younger.
Younger. The Rebbe was the oldest. When he says we have to ask our son, Rebbe says this was the older son. I think I shared with you once that there was a Simcha Garadetsky was also once sent by the Friedrich Rebbe to Yekaterinoslav, and Rabbi Levi invited them. So he stayed by Rabbi Levi in the house. Rabbi Levi was Rebbe, the Rebbetzin, and 3 sons. They were sitting, it was summer, I guess, they were sitting outside, not in the house, the veranda, whatever, the courtyard, whatever, and talking, and Label, the younger Rebbe's younger brother, who was 8, 9, whatever, under 10 years old, Shalom, come and join, there's still a chair for you.
Shalom, shalom.
Eliyahu, Davai. So, well, he lives in Woodbridge.
He's the client.
Yeah. So the Rebbe's brother Label, who was under 10, was sitting with the Gemara Eruvin. When Eruvin is a tough Gemara, a child is sitting with the Elmetzias, Baba Kama, Baba Basra, sitting with the Eruvin. So Simcha Baradetsky I see the child is looking at the Gemara and looking and going another page, so in the end he turned to Rabbi Levi, what is your child doing with the Gemara Eruvin? He says, ask him. So he says, I turned to him and I said, can you tell me? I see, as we were sitting, you turned one page, a second page. What did you learn? So the child opened his mouth and started putting down the Gemara with it. And I was blown away. They're sitting and talking, and the Rebbe was already older, right? So the Rebbe was 2 years older than Label. And as they're sitting there, I think he or somebody asked, what time is it? What time is it? They were sitting outside. It was getting dark. I guess they had some light. So he says, Chaim. So the Rebbe picked up his eyes on the sky, stars, and told them it's 10 to 10. Garodetsky says, I had a hard time. I had a hard time to accept it. The child is throwing a number like, what is this? Looking at the stars. But I wasn't comfortable to say that I'm going to look at the watch. So I said, I need to wash it. He walked into the house, and in the house there is a clock on the wall. It was 10 to 10. So when he walked out, he sat down back. Rabbi Levi says to him, so was the timing proper? Was the time correct? He picked him up. He didn't go that he needed something else. He didn't believe that the child reads the time from the stars. Rabbi Levi himself was on that level. They say that once there was Chassidim together with him were going Rosh Hashanah. They were going to the river for Tashlich. You read Tashlich. So there was the river, the Volga, in Dnepropetrovsk. Dnieper. Она потом становится Волга, да? Меняется? Whatever. Dnieper, whatever. I was there. I saw this, the name, correct. So somebody says to Rabbi Levi, Alter Rebbe says, Hayem Haras Elom, from the prayer of Rosh Hashanah and Machzor. Hayem Haras Elom, the world is on a different motion. Well, where do we see it? So Rabbi Levi says, you can't hear the noise of the river is a different noise. It's Rosh Hashanah today. Don't you hear? Well, that guy didn't hear. In the years of communism, as you heard this, that they took away, Rebbe Levi had a big house, they took away the house. Meaning, they didn't take away the house, they came in and they said, there's too much space in the house. For 5 people, your husband and wife and 3 sons, it's too much space. They divided the house, I think, in 4. They left them a quarter of the house, and they rented out to other people. They put dividers in the house. One of the people they put in the house was a KGB agent to look what Rebbe Levi is, people coming, going, noise, and this. They knew this is a KGB, and they have to be careful because anything he sees in this will be reported. Rebbetzin Chana writes in her diary, 12 at night, there is a knock on the door. She says, I'm going to the door. It's an old lady who says, my daughter and son-in-law are on the way here, and they wanted the rabbi to make their chuppah. She says, I insisted they should have a chuppah, and they said they're only ready to make a chuppah by Rebbe Levi because they don't trust anybody else. Because he was in the high position, and if somebody will find out they made a chuppah, they'll be in big trouble. They trust Rebbe Levi. Okay, Rebbe Levi was told that soon is going to be a chuppah. She says he right away, whatever he was doing, he sat down. He became nervous. To him, it was like a big making a chuppah. Okay, he says an hour later, 1:00, the groom came in. Then a little bit, the bride came in like this. Nobody sees the face, and now you need a minyan. Rebbe Levi sent a few people, whatever to call, a few neighbors. So Rebbe Levi and the Chosin altogether, 9 people. It's already 1:30. There's 9 people. Says Rebbe Levi to someone, go call my neighbor, who the KGB guy, who is Jewish. He's a Jew. Go call him for the tent. Rebbetzin Chana says, I'm saying to my husband, so don't worry, bring it. Okay, the husband says, she understood that. He knows what he's doing. So Rebbe Levi said to the house and Kala, they should turn and face there, wherever to the side of this, and the neighbor will come in. And so they went, and he says he has to think about it. So then Rebbe Levi went, knocked on the door, he came out, and he says, look, you could come in, turn to the wall, nobody has to see you, and you probably don't want to see anybody else. And this way, I could make a chuppah because you're Jewish, I need a 10th Jew. The guy agreed. The guy came in, stood to the wall, during the whole service of the chuppah. After the chuppah, he walked back to his quarter apartment. She says, when Rebbe Levi was arrested, so they had a lot of complaints at Rebbe Levi. One of them was that there was a опрос населения, what is it called?
Census.
Yeah, census. And one of the questions in the census was, do you believe in God?
Okay.
That was in the census in Russia in that years. Now, many people in the community understood that they're going to put the belief in God, you're going to be on the bad side. They're going to start bothering you. Rebbe Levi took it very serious, and Rebbe Levi made a point. Dnepropetrovsk had many shuls. Rebbe Levi usually used to daven in one shul, and from time to time he visited 2 other bigger shuls. The whole community, when they needed, they came to him, but he didn't walk to daven in every shul. The minute this came out, he made a point, Friday night in one shul, he made a speech that to write, I don't believe in God is heresy, is something that a Jew has to be Mesiras Nefesh. You can't make a declaration, I don't believe in God. you have to fill out, you believe in God, you have to fill out the form. And Shabbos morning, he went to another shul, and Mincha for third shul, Sunday morning, he made sure there was a funeral, that's where he spoke at the funeral, whatever. He made sure the whole city heard him. There was no paper where you could put an ad. He didn't have an Instagram to send to the whole community. 30% of Dnepropetrovsk were Jewish. You're talking a few 100,000 Jews. So when he was arrested, so this was one of the complaints to him. He says, I don't understand, Doctor. You're a communist. You wanted the answer to be the truth. I told the community, you believe in God. You should say you believe in God. Don't believe in God and write you don't believe. You have to be truthful. You have to answer the truth. That's what he answered to the KGB. On the court, they called this guy, the neighbor, the communist, the KGB, who was responsible to look at the Rebbe Levi that he behaves. They asked him, did you ever see anything illegal happening in the house of the rabbi? He says, no. Rebbetzin says, when we saw that she was sitting in court, when she saw that he's being called to speak, she says, oy vey. Now he's going to tell him if he made a chuppah 1:30 at night. Like, this is breaking the law. We're not allowed to do that in that years. He says, no, I never saw. I never saw anything that the Rav broke any law. Rebbetzin Chana says, and only then I understood that if he wouldn't come to this chuppah, he would have a lot what to say that we did wrong. Actually, Rebbe Levi brought him in to the chuppah and made him help me to make a chuppah, brought in him out something, and he didn't see anything wrong anymore. That was... There's many stories of
Who's
Rebbe
the
Levi.
accomplice now?
Huh?
Who's the accomplice?
Yeah.
Meaning?
He's part
He's
of
part of
it.
it now.
Yeah.
So if you say he did, he also.
It's not about that. It's not about that. Intuition.
It's the Jew, the soul that he touched.
Другой бы застукал.
Chaim.
L'chaim Roch, l'chaim. Zei de kist nog iets over accent.
Message.
Efter Yehuda, mijn zoon. Wie is het? Document bitte, no? No? Nicht demo, nicht befrieren, no?
Oh, one time. Right. So yes, you can.
Yeah. This, another story with Rebbe Levi.
When he was born.
Rebbe Levi?
Yeah.
He was 2 years older of the Friedrich Rebbe. The Friedrich Rebbe was born in 1880, and Rebbe Levi was born in 1878.
He passed away in 45?
44. He was 66 years old.
I don't know.
Very young.
Very young, yes.
What did I start saying? Yeah. When he came to be the Rav, so in Yekaterinoslav, it was a very industrial city, and there were Zionists, and there were Frum Jews, and there were non-Frum, many different movements. And when they heard that Shneerson is coming, so they all made together we're going to fight it, because in order to become the Rav, he had to get the majority votes. Because that was still, at that time, was still votes. It was before the revolution. The community had to vote. The Rebbe Rashab is the one who sent him to be there, and the Rebbe Rashab gave him different ideas, what, how. Anyway, there were a few people there who were leaders, big machers, Jews, talented, rich. One of them, Rafalovich, I think his name was. So he said, look, I'm obviously against to have a Schneerson here to become the Rav. He's going to dictate us. He's going to demand from us too much. I want somebody more modern here. But in any case, before I go out officially that I'm against him, I have to meet him. I have to meet him to know who am I dealing with. So one evening he came to see Rabbi Levi, and they sat together till the morning. And he walked out, and he says, this guy will be the Rav in our city. Somebody like that, you were not going to find anywhere. Somebody, any topic, he was like genius. And somebody who has such a insight, such a straight, righteous, we can't have a better leader. Yeah, he's a religious. Okay, I can't do anything with that. But he is the one who should be a Rav in our city. Unfortunately, he wasn't frum. So on Shabbos, he sat in the park with a cigarette, Refalovich, and all his friends came to him when there was about the elections, and he gave them instructions how to act, what to do. Shalom Aleichem, huh? Come with Tati? With who? Oh, with Yossi. Shalom Aleichem. This is Mendel Zaltzman's son-in-law. It's my granddaughter's husband. Yosef Yitzchak Lapkovsky from Buffalo. His brother-in-law now. Okay. It's also a grandchild. It's not married to a grandchild. No, it's a Huh? What?
Little kid. It's your grandson-in-law.
Little is relative. Yeah.
Grandson-in-law. We don't have it. My son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws call me and Abba and Ima, so no in-laws. Started with his brother, and then everybody picked it up. L'chaim. Yeah. At the Rebbe's bar mitzvah, there was also actually a very special experience. Rebbetzin Chana tells the story. We have to understand the story. Rabbi Yael once explained it to me. We said Thursday night late, and he gave me his explanation to it. But the bar mitzvah, they celebrated, it was, I guess, a Shabbos. Yidal this, the Rebbe's birthday. It was 1915 was the Rebbe's bar mitzvah. The Rebbe was born in 1902, so 1915 was his bar mitzvah. So Friday night, the celebration was at home, and by the table became a big disagreement between Rabbi Levi and the son. And it continued Shabbos day in the shul, and Bashal Shudas in the house. And then Rebbetzin Chana says, and then the Rebbe agreed with his father, gave up his opinion, and they went for a dance. The simcha was above all. So Rafalovich was also there. This guy, the non-frum guy, who had a hand in Rebbe's father becoming the Rav in Yekaterinslav. So he came over to Rebbetzin Chana. He says, I thought I had one schus that I brought a Rav like that to town. But now I see another schus that I brought your son, such a son, also to town. It was after the Rebbe gave his bar mitzvah speech at the bar mitzvah.
There's a few things the Rebbe did because of Rabbi Levi, with the talis.
Correct.
Kabbalah.
Yeah. There's certain things the Rebbe did. People ask the Rebbe in Sefer HaMinhagim says Chabad does this way. And the Rebbe did a little different. So people ask the Rebbe, then we want to do that with it. The Rebbe says, by me, it's kibbud av. I'm doing something what my father did. But for you don't have the kibbud av. You look and Sefer HaMinhagim and act. do what says the Sefer Minhagei Chabad. You heard about the disagreement with the Bar Mitzvah? Where was it? Remember? Oh, you know that there was. Yeah, that's this Gordon already printed in Yiddish Haim in 1961 when the Rebbetzin shared with him, but over there doesn't say what. Huh? Yeah, no. Yale told me what he heard from the Rebbetzin Chana. Rabbi Levi said that the Bar Mitzvah, you have to accept Hashem because this is Emes with Kabbalah sale. You have to accept godliness that I'm going to be a Jew on Kabbalah sale base. And the Rebbe says, if you have ability of also understanding, you should accept Hashem because you understand. A bris is the parents do, but this should be this. And went back and forth and back and forth. Rabbi Levi brought proofs this way, the Rebbe brought proofs the other way, and it was going back and forth.
That was against the understanding?
Rabbi Levi says that you have to accept it because that's what Hashem says.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with additional understanding?
I cannot go there. I'm not on their level of arguments. It's interesting that the Rebbetzin Chana, she understood what they're talking. She understood the proofs back and forth. Rebbetzin Chana also shared that by the Shabbos table, so the father, he says, used to say something, and that was all in the language of Kabbalah. He says, my label spoke in the basis of Chkira, and Beryl, the youngest, spoke in the basis of Talmud, and the Rebbe in the basis of Chassidus. So each one said something. They were talking, arguing between them, discussing things, but each one spoke from his point of view. Rebbe says, Rebbetzin Chana writes usually on there, so I'm a simple lady, what do I know? But she writes, she knew that each one talks in their language. She was educated enough to understand. So, anyway, Rabbi Yael shared us L'chaim. So Rabbi Yael, to explain something, Rabbi Yael was going and bringing, he didn't just say a few words, he brought out that it was, he put it down that you not only understood it, it was tasty and you swallowed it. That's what he was doing something. So he started, you know, the story says that the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov says the Alter Rebbe should not be told about the Baal Shem Tov. And the Maggid also, the Alter Rebbe has to come himself. Yeah, okay, yeah, I heard about it. He says, so why? The Alter Rebbe has to be the one who will reveal Chassidus, and he said it, his job is going to be to reveal Chassidus Chabad, and don't tell him about Baal Shem Tov, don't tell him about Chassidus. What does that mean? He says it's simple. Because the Alter Rebbe had to be the one to teach Jews, religious, all Jews, that even so they don't come with the background of Chassidus, they should be able to turn their mind, see what Chassidus offers, and make that change in their life.
He has to walk that road first.
In order to be able to do that, he has to do it himself. So that's what the Baal Shem Tov says, don't tell him about Chassidus. He has to come to himself on his own. That's why he'll be able to teach others how to do it. If you're going to bring him to Chassidus, he'll give a lot of Chassidus, but he's not going to be able to teach them. They should make the change to come to Chassidus. That's what he said one story. Then there is another story. The other story is the famous story with the Alter Rebbe and the Gro. When the Alter Rebbe was going to the Gro together with Mendel Radoker, he said it to his grandson. He says, I wasn't worried that I'm not going to be able to answer his questions. I also wasn't worried that I'm not going to have enough questions there to show him that this is the right way. What I'm afraid is that the Gaon was known that he had a lot of kisri yad, he had a lot of handwritings of Rishonim. Through different libraries, he had access, he collected between his students manuscripts of different great Jews. And if he's going to tell me that this and this manuscript says this and this, I never saw it, I'm not going to know what to answer him. Anything in Torah, wherever it's printed, wherever this, I have no problem. I'll be able to stay my ground. I'll be able to deal with it and get to the bottom of it. But this was afraid. So Rabbi says, look, really, imagine that you are going to have a discussion with a Reform rabbi, right? And let's say especially if it's public. And let's say the Reform rabbi asks you a question in Talmud to prove that his approach is correct one, and you're not going to have what to answer. But you could answer not the way you really understand that Gemara. You will explain it in a way that is an answer to him or to the listeners, but it's not emes. It's not the real. It's not really the real thing. Would you do it? Well, I have to defend halacha. I have to defend the Jewish way. So what should I do? And I don't know enough to be able to. So I would say whatever it takes to say to win this, because I can't let him win, because what does it mean? It means we have to leave Yiddishkeit, God forbid. We can't. It's a chilul Hashem. So in a moment of disgrace of Hashem's name could come out, so I have to do whatever I can. But over here he says, the Alter Rebbe, with the Gro, here you see that the Gro would use our approach. He was sure that the Alter Rebbe is the Chassidim are in the wrong path. So in order to prove him, I'll quote something, it's not exactly. But I have to put him in place. I have to put the whole community in place. But the Alter Rebbe on the way back says, but the Alter Rebbe wouldn't do it. The Alter Rebbe would go only with the truth. He says, and I'm sure the Rebbe will help me, I'll be able to, but the Alter Rebbe was not ready, even for saving Jewry, saving Chassidus, or whatever. He was not ready to say a word that is not 100% the truth. This you see the approach of the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe was afraid. He understood the approach of the Gaon of Vilna would be, we have to save, so then you do whatever you have to do, as they call it.
Chassidus was so dangerous, huh?
In the eyes of the women, he signed a cherem. You cannot marry their daughters, you cannot drink their wine. Well, this is not a joke. By the way, who was it? Chaim Briskin, I remember one of the big, explained, he says, so how come the Misnagdim don't follow the Gro? There are many Litvaks who marry Chassidim and come to a Chassidic house and they drink their wine. They don't follow the Gro. He says, very simple, it's not that they don't follow the Gro. The Gro writes they're not religious Jews. They're not religious Jews, then it's a question to marry their daughter or drink their wine. But then the Misnagdim met a Chassid, they deal with him, they see him, he goes out from the house, they see him going to shul, davening, and this is the way he's educating his kids. They see he's a God-fearing Jew, he's a Chassid, okay, unfortunately, but he's a God-fearing Jew, so what do you mean not to marry him or not to drink the wine? It was obviously. So they just saw it's a different reality. What the Gro said talks about someone that they didn't meet yet. Not that they ignored what the Gro, but just it wasn't the reality. So therefore,
The Quran made the cherem on those kind of people.
okay, but
maybe he's going to go off that.
Okay, fine. But there were no Hasidim at that time or later with that kind of emotion. Whatever, that's a different story. So Rabbi says, the Rebbe's job was to bring Jews back to Yiddishkeit. So that was the approach of the Rebbe by the Bar Mitzvah. And Rabbi Levi demanded the other way. Whatever. Rabbi Yel explained the whole. It's interesting also that Rabbi Levi didn't allow his children to go to the Rebbe Rashab. Rabbi Levi himself was a chassid of the Rebbe Rashab. He was going to the Rebbe Rashab. It was his Rebbe. And Rabbi Levi, on his level, do you understand what means his Rebbe? He's like, not like Baas, how much we understand. The way Rabbi Levi understood what a Rebbe is. One was the last story I just saw is that one of the Chassidim, I think in 1918, 1919, was in the house and he was from Yekaterinslav traveling to Rostov to the Rebbe Rashab. And he stopped by the door and turned around to Rabbi Levi to say goodbye. And the Rebbe, because the father said no, he didn't ask again. But the Rebbe walked over and stood near the chassid by the door. As he was leaving, the Rebbe stood there, right there. And the chassid says to Rabbi Levi, okay, I'm going to the Rebbe. And can I take him along? He was taking right him. No. The Rebbe wouldn't even ask. Because Rabbi Levi, the father said once, you don't ask again.
Why?
We know that was instructions of the Rebbe Rashab.
Oh, it's Rebbe Rashab told
I also don't know why.
Huh?
I still don't know why.
It's already.
Yeah, like the Baal Shem Tov said to the father of Alter Rebbe not to tell him about Baal Shem Tov. Even so, the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe's father, was a chassid of the Baal Shem. He told him not to. Similar, the Rebbe, he got the bracha, he got the sharoness, but they asked him, the Baal Shem Tov said to his parents, but the child will ask, who caught my hair? You should tell him Zayda. Don't tell him a name. And the Alter Rebbe didn't ask more. Zayda, okay, he accepted Zayda. He didn't ask for the name. Because the Alter Rebbe was, as a child, 3 years old. He was sharp already enough to...
He has to make his own way to Chassidus.
Yeah.
But Rebbe and his father obviously are Chassidus.
Yeah.
So there is something else.
The Rebbe once, by Farbrengen, said, the Rebbe once said by Farbrengen, I wanted to see the Rebbe Rashab, but I did not manage. And afterwards, I'm happy. Because if I would be the Rebbe Rashab, it could have been my niskashrus to my father-in-law would not be on the same level. So he's happy that he wasn't with the Rebbe Rashab because now he's connected to the Friedrich Rebbe fully. The Chassidim always had a hard time when a Rebbe left, and now they have to switch to a new Rebbe. It was they were totally given over and connected to the Rebbe, to everything. So to take something new, something different, it was very hard. We see it by Avraham Avinu. All the people that Avraham Avinu brought to Yiddishkeit, comes to Yitzchak, we don't see them. Where are they? And then Yitzchak, in his lifetime, built up also a whole group, huge group, thousands of people. And then comes Yaakov, and again they're gone. So it's explained that Avraham Avinu was chesed. They said, well, Yitzchak is a totally different behavior. That's not our Rebbe. This is not the way a Rebbe behaves. This is what they got used to Avraham Avinu. So they had a hard time to deal with Yitzchak, and so on. So Chassidim who managed to this was special Chassidim who were above this. I got used to him. This is what I like. This is what they were like higher than that. And they managed to connect to the next Rebbe. I mean, the Rebbe is obviously higher than all the city, but the Rebbe still said that line.
היו חסידים שעזבו?
Uh-huh.
היו חסידים שעזבו? didn't connect with the new Rebbe?
The לא עזבו. הם היו, אבל ההתקשרות, the connection to the Rebbe to the second Rebbe that they had in their life was not the same as the first. They didn't leave. There was probably nowhere to go, but it wasn't the same. They were excited that their children, their grandchildren were connected to the Rebbe in their generations, whatever. That was always from Tzemach Tzedek, Marash, Tzemach. But every generation of Rebbe, it's not simple. Because again, if you just, okay, he's a smart man and I like him and this is one thing, but you're connected, like the Alter Rebbe had a Chassid, Rashbatz's Rebbe, the Mechanogin, the Rashbatz. No, what was his name? No, Michal Apotsker. Michal from the city of Apotsk.
Yes.
Yeah. So he learned. Rashbatz went to him to learn Chassidus. He educated him for a few years, but even Rashbatz was 20 or 21, 22, I'm not sure. He told him, whatever I could give you, I did. Now it's time for you to go to the Rebbe. That was the Tzemach Tzedek. And so he prepared to go. The Rashbatz prepared whatever, took stuff, whatever it is. And the Rashbatz was already at that time about 80 years old. And he's walking him out, but he's walking in the city till they came to the end of the city. So the Rashbatz says to his teacher, why are you walking so long? It's hard for you. He says, look, I'm not going to the Rebbe, at least I have a chance to escort someone who goes to the Rebbe. So then, the Rashbatz was always bothered the fact that he didn't go to the Tzemach Tzedek. He was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, then of the Middle Rebbe, and then he stayed at Apotsk. He didn't travel in Lubavitch to the Rebbe, to the Tzemach Tzedek, and it was always bothering the young chassid. He was learning from him, but he couldn't understand, why is he not going to the Rebbe? He's teaching me Rebbe, and himself he doesn't go to the Rebbe. What's this? So at that time, when he told him, at least I wanted to escort someone who goes to the Rebbe, he asked him, so why don't you actually go to the Rebbe? He says, what do you want, Doctor? I gave away my neshama, I gave away to the Alter Rebbe. Nefesh, Ruach, neshama, I gave to the Alter Rebbe. Chai, Yechid, I gave away to the Middle Rebbe. What should I bring to the Tzemach Tzedek? He says, a sack with bones and blood? Just bring a body to the Rebbe? If I'm coming to the Rebbe, I have to bring my soul. I gave them already away. You have to know what that means. We don't have those problems. Yeah.
When we're going to do
I don't know. Before 7 in the morning, I guess.
When's Alois?
Huh?
When's Alois?
Alois.
I'm here till 10.
Till 10. Okay, so then we'll have to do it 10. Is my phone here? I came with my phone? Or I left my phone in the car? Oh, is there a phone there? Можно? Telephone. Yeah, I guess. Yes, it's mine. What is it? Oh. Okay, so 10 o'clock will daven? 10 o'clock will daven? Oh, you have to leave already?
It's already time, that's why I'm saying.
Есть разные Chassidut, есть Chassidut of time.
Chassidus on time.
No, you can continue after.
I understand. Yeah. Oh, it's 9:40 almost. Okay. I was in the middle of something.
No, being Chassid and giving
Want
away,
to give over
Yeah.
to the Rebbe.
connecting to another one. We don't have such a problem. Today we connect to this, to Brooklyn.
Chaim.
Chaim Rochel, Chaim. The Rebbe actually speaks about lechem in Hashemayim, man. Another sikha we didn't learn. Maybe tomorrow morning we'll take that sikha. Where the Rebbe speaks about that lechem in Hashemayim, in order to be able to take it, you have to empty yourself from everything the way I feel, the way I think, the way I this. Because the minute I come there with this, Lechem and Hashemayim is godliness. You can't take it. There's nowhere. You're not going to take it then.
I have to remember taste of Amatzia, taste of previous stuff I ate. I have to remember.
What you ate before?
Because man gives
So
you
you have to
any
imagine,
taste
right?
you remember.
Maybe what you do, you
But-
remember and then say, I'm giving
But
you
that people wanted to have taste. They wanted meat and they wanted bread and they wanted this. The tzaddikim didn't ask for it. They were fine
Which
with
is
the man.
very interesting. Hashem said the generation that goes into Eretz Yisrael has to be a generation that didn't have before the man.
Yeah.
They didn't, their imagination doesn't know how.
Anyway,
Probably closed their eyes, imagined the challah, all of a sudden the challah came up.
Yeah.
yeah. It's interesting. We'll just the song of Rabbi Levi. All the songs in Chassidus, if you know all the songs, how they start slowly. It's like a plane, starts moving, and then it goes faster, and then it takes off. Every nigun starts with you where you are and brings you up to a certain peak. Reb Levi's nigun, the Rebbe used to call my father's nigun in Simchas Torah. The nigun starts, it's not a plane, it's like a rocket. It doesn't start like this, it starts right away like this. And the Rebbe always, Simchas Torah, Akofes, the Rebbe used to call my father's nigun. The father's nigun starts, it's right away like this. There's no, нет разгона, straight up. Yeah. Самолет, ракета. Да, но это вертолет, whatever.
Нет, самолеты тоже так летают.
Который поднимается, он дует, и потом начинает лететь.
Drone.
Whatever, I'm just saying is that it was, Rabbi Levi was something unique. And you could see it, like we saw today, just in 5 lines. But this is everything he touched like that. He touched something, all of a sudden, the whole Torah on this subject, and showed the depth and how it connected with everything. The holiday, the office, everything he did like this. Any word, you take a word, the numbers. It was like you look in his books to go through one page. You have to go through 20, 30, 50 pages or 100 pages to understand what is he talking about, to go through all this. He just brings a word here. Okay, we'll have Ma'ariv. We made a picnic a week ago. 100 people came, locals. Farbrengen, they don't know yet what it means. Picnic is.